Hello, welcome to Reading Success Academy. I'm Paula Smith, and in this live session, we're going to be talking about how to teach children CCVC words and CVCC words. And what that really means is the spelling pattern consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant. And what we're going to be doing is showing you some strategies that are going to help them learn the sound to symbol relationship between the letters and the sounds. And we're also going to be working on some spelling. So we're going to be finding all of the sounds in the word, putting them in the right order, and then we're going to be spelling them. So we call this word building and mapping. So I'm going to get you over to where you can see my whiteboard here. And what I have set up here are all of the letters that we're going to work with for this particular set of words. And I have picked out a few letters already for a word that we're going to work on. Now, as we're talking about these, I already told you the CVCC and what CCVC stands for, but a lot of teachers will refer to these as the blends, as if they are an entire entity on their own. But actually, once you know all the sounds of the letters and you can blend, then you don't need to know all the different combinations of blends. You just need to be able to blend. You need to put that skill to work. And so I'm going to show a little bit different perspective than maybe what you've seen before if you've learned a little bit about teaching reading. So what we would do with the student is say, okay, we're going to build the word sand now. Tell me the sounds you hear in sand. And then, of course, we're listening for s, a, n, d, sand. Those are the four sounds in sand. So we're going to move each piece into the word here. There are four sounds in sand, so we're going to put them in order. And what this does is it teaches students to listen for each sound so that they can match them up in the right order. And then we'll be able to spell them that way. So what do you hear first in the word sand? We hear s. Right, so we'll pull this s sound picture in, and we're going to say s as we move it into place. Now, I want you to listen in this place for the next sound you hear in sand. Sand. What were you hearing right here in sand? Now, what I'm doing by pointing to this place and asking them to listen in this place for the next sound, this is what helps students with dyslexia, because they sometimes have a hard time knowing exactly where to focus and where the sounds are happening in the word. So we're giving them a place to listen. All right, so of course our answer here is ah, so we're going to grab that sound picture, ah, and move it right in. And you probably notice I'm using the word sound picture instead of saying letter. That's because when we're saying sound pictures, we could be referring to two or more letters that make one sound, and that's going to come up in this lesson. So if we just say letter, well, there's two letters on this one, so that could be confusing. So sound pictures are just pictures of sounds, whether that sound is spelled with 1, 2, 3, or 4 letters. All right. Now it's time to listen in this place for the next sound you hear in sand. Sand. What goes here? Right, so let's drag that sound in and let's hold that sound as we move it. Now what we have so far is san. San. What do we need to make this sand? Sand. D, d, d. That's it. We're going to move in this d sound picture. D, 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 d. And now we have and sand. Now you probably noticed that I repeated this sound as I moved it in. With n and a and s, you can make those sounds and hold them the whole time, but d is a sound that just pops right out and then it's over with. If you were to hold the sound a little longer and drag it in, you're going to end up with an extra vowel sound. It would sound like duh as you move it in. So instead of adding an extra to the end, we're just saying d, d, Otherwise, if they're used to hearing sanda, sanda, then you end up with a different word. Well, it's actually not even a word. Sanda, not that I know of. All right, so we've built the word now, and then we're going to grab a pencil and we're going to say each sound as we write the letters. And this is how I always teach spelling, saying the sounds as we write the letters, because we want to involve as many of our senses as possible when we're doing this. We're using our sense of sight, our hearing, and our sense of touch at the same time. It helps students learn information faster and retain it longer this way. So let's get started with sand. Say each sound as you write the letters. S, a, n, d. Sand. And there we go. And we're making sure that we're using nice, clean consonant sounds. We're not saying sa, and da. We're saying s, a, n, d. No sloppy uhs on the ends of those consonants. Okay, let's try another one. I'm going to go ahead and move over here. And we're going to use one of these sound pictures that have 2 letters. Keep this one. And we'll use a different vowel sound too. Okay, so we have our pieces up here. And you would use this with a word building worksheet and some letter tiles, or you can use the digital ones that I provide through readingsuccessacademy.com. All right, so we're going to build the word sniff. Sniff. So you'd ask your student, what are the sounds you hear in sniff? And those answers should be s, n, if, sniff. So now we're going to build that word down here from the first sound to the last, saying each sound as we go. S, and then ask, what sound do you hear in this place? In sniff. Sniff. And I'm indicating right here, this is where you need to listen. So match the sound where it goes. Sniff. So then grab your letter that goes with it. Which one of these makes that n sound? Yes, it's this one. So let's move it on in. N. So far we have sn, sn. Now we need to listen in this place for the next sound you hear in sniff, sniff. What sound is happening right here? I, right? Okay. Which one of these sound pictures is I? And at this point, at this level, most students would know that it's going to be this one right here. And we're going to hold that sound as we move it in. I. And now we need to listen for that last sound in sniff, sniff, f, f, f. Yes, and we're going to repeat that sound as we move it in. F, 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 f. Sniff, sniff. Now you notice that I didn't blend these. I didn't say sn. I said sn, if, and then I blended them together. Because once you know the sounds of each of those letters, you can blend them together in whatever order they come in. They don't need to learn the GRs and the GLs and the SNs and the SPs and all that. Because what happens when they learn all those little blends separately is they get them confused, and they'll sometimes put the wrong second consonant in there, especially when they're spelling, and they can end up leaving out a letter. So let's pretend that we're learning them all as blends, and that we've been focusing on sn in this word, and then it's time to spell this one. This is what can go wrong when you're spelling, when you're thinking of blends. So you would think the sounds as you go. Sn, if, sniff. Do you see the problem? Obviously you do. All right, we've left out the N because when we were writing the S here, we were saying both sounds because we're so used to blending them together, right? Saying sn. So now when it's time to go to the next sound, we've left out a letter because we didn't represent each sound separately. They have to be represented separately. So let's clean this up a little bit. And how that's really supposed to go is like this. S, n, I, f. And we're going to need to remember to double that f there at the end. Sniff. I hope that makes sense why we're saying each sound as we write the letters. Very important not to get all caught up with the blends. I've had students before who've learned so many different blends together that when I ask them to read a word, maybe if they're looking at this word and they've been studying the sp blends, right? They'll say sp here, even though there's an N. They get so used to just looking at the first letter and blending it with something else that they're not realizing that each one of these letters has their own sounds. That's called phonemic awareness. We need to know where all the sounds are in the words and which letters represent them. All right, so there's sniff. Now I'm going to keep this sound picture here. We'll do a couple more. So you get used to hearing how those letters are supposed to sound, or how all the sound pictures should be sounding when we're moving them around. All right, let's do this one. So you're just going to scramble the words up with the letter tiles on their paper. Give them a place to focus and only give them a few choices. If we just gave them all of these choices, there's just way too many distractors here. We only want to give them the sounds in the word to look at, especially if they're still learning their sounds. Now, at this level, they would probably already know all these. But if you have a younger student and you're teaching them like fat, cat, sat level words, they definitely need to just have a few letters to decide, okay, well, which one is it? Set them up for success. Okay, so we're going to build the word rest. Rest. So tell me the sounds you hear in rest. We hear r, s, t, rest. What's that very first sound you hear in rest? R, r. Yes, so now we need to look and decide which one of these represents the r sound. Which one of these is r? It's right here. Good. So we're going to say r as we move it into place. And now we're going to listen in this place for the next sound you hear in rest. Rest. What sound was happening right here? That was eh. Yes. So let's say that as we move it in. Eh. So even though we're not writing this right now, we're still putting together our sense of touch, our hearing, our sense of touch, hearing, and vision together as we're matching up that letter to the sound. It helps them learn all the sounds of the letters a lot faster that way. Okay, what comes next in rest? Rest. Again, I'm wiggling my cursor around because I want them to listen in that place and just give me this sound. Because sometimes students will say sta, but we need to have them separated. They need to know that each one of these gets their own sound. So then they'll say s, and we'll hold it as we move it in. S. So far we have res, res. What do we need to make it rest? Rest. And of course they'll say t. So we'll say it, move it in. T, 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 t. And now we have rest. And then when we write it, we're going to say each sound as we write the letters again. So grab your pencil and we're going to say r, s, t, rest. And we are going to spell it after we build the word every time, because that helps solidify the idea that the sounds can be blended together to make a word, and then we can pull them back apart to spell the word, because reading and spelling are kind of opposite of each other. All right, let's try one more of these. I'm going to keep this r in here. And let's use this sound picture. go. All right. So we're going to build the word grass. Tell me the sound you hear in grass. And your student should say g, r, a, s, grass. Okay, 4 sounds. There are 5 letters in it, but only 4 sounds because 2 of them work together to make the same sound here. So once they've told you all the sounds in the word grass, you're going to say, well, what's the very first sound you hear? And they're going to say g, g. So you ask them which one of these is the g sound picture. And of course, they're going to point out it's this one here, and you'll say g, 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 g. Remember, we're not saying ga, we're saying g. There are sounds that just kind of pop out like that, and you don't want to say along with them as you drag it. You don't want to say ga and move it down there because then you have an extra vowel sound. Then we have garasa or something like that. All right, next up, we're going to listen here for the next sound in grass. Grass, indicating to listen right here. And what sound did we hear? R. So we'll grab that one and then pull it on in. R. Of course, if they don't know all the sounds of these letters, you would go through and ask which one of these is the correct sound picture for R. And then move it in. And then we give them another place to listen. What sound is happening here in grass? Really helpful for students with dyslexia because they need a place, they need an indicator as to where they need to listen. Grass. Oh, that's the sound ah. Which one is ah? This one here. Ah. Now, since this is a vowel sound, we can hold it. We can hold that sound all the way in. And then what is the last sound you hear in grass? Grass. Here. S. Yes. And then we're just going to move it on in. S. So the sounds in grass are g, r, a, s. And then we blend those together. Grass. And I'll tell you, there have been many, many times where I've had students who are faced with this word and they'll want to tell me that this is grass or glass because they've learned the blends so well that they don't know how to take the sounds back apart again. So we need to make sure that they know that each one of these gets their own sound. G, r, a, s. And then once you know that, then you can blend them in whatever order they come in. And then we would go through when we would spell this word, saying each sound as we write the letters. All right, I think that's plenty for today. Thanks for joining me. If you have any questions about the phonographics method or anything that I've shown you here, make sure you reach out to hello@readingsuccessacademy.com. I am happy to help you with that. And if you have a student who's really struggling with reading or spelling, I do have a 12-week boot camp that's coming up in a couple of weeks. We're going to get kids reading on grade level in 12 weeks or less, which is really exciting. And we're going to be offering accelerated reader accounts to all of our students enrolling. Again, hello@readingsuccessacademy.com if you have any questions. We also have a lot of spelling classes over at spellingclasses.com. All right, I'll see you in the next live session. Thanks for dropping in. Bye.